And we're live. Welcome to the Best in Slot podcast, a Warcraft podcast by the community for the community. I'm your main host, Sparty. I'm here with my co-host, Midgettes. Midgettes, hello. How are you this fine Sunday evening?
I'm doing great. How are you, Sparty?
I'm good. It's been a long, exhausting day, and here we are. You know, did a bit of a fruit salad thing with my little one. I was dressed up as a banana, and everyone was like looking at, look, it's a big banana. I took it as a compliment, of course, as my daughter was dressed up as a strawberry. So it was good.
It was adorable picture. I can't wait for you to share it with everybody.
Oh, for sure. But yes, welcome, guys. This is episode 44. Today we'll be talking about feedback, constructive criticism, player and community feedback, and ultimately our passion for the game itself, or otherwise known as, is anyone tired of all the friggin' yelling? Because there's a lot of it going on, and we'll talk about it for sure. But let's start off with the best way to start a show. Right?
Which is, I'm going to surprise you. It's with your joke, Sparty. I can't wait to hear it.
Fantastic. You're gonna like this one. So midgets, what is
Yes, Sparty.
what does an air conditioner have in common with a computer?
Oh, dear, what?
They both lose efficiency as soon as you open Windows.
Oh, dear.
I see Donna's going to like that one too. That's a great joke. It's awesome. I like it.
Well, you like all your jokes.
I mean, because I'm hilarious. I just have to tell myself that.
Well, we did finally solve the best in slot on Spotify. We actually have the link for you.
Perfect.
Yes.
So
You still haven't gotten it to work in Canada.
yeah,
But,
I don't know what it is. So yeah, so we have Spotify finally working. The link is there, ready to go. Awesome, we're on Spotify. The bad news is, for some reason, it's not working in Canada. I'm not sure why, as I'm Canadian, and it's sort of being broadcast from Canada, but I'm sure there's a tariff on it or something, and, you know, we can't afford it.
Well, according to Spotify, there's no block, but
Yeah, I don't know.
you can't
We'll look into it some more for those of you that are Canadians. We'll find out what's going on. Otherwise, the Twitch VODs will still be up there, and YouTube's and all that stuff. But yeah, so moving on. So what is today? Today is a special day because
Today is a special day because you forgot until today to buy the pirate ship.
no, I bought it like a month ago.
Oh, you did not.
I totally did.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, I
Put
didn't buy it
everything
today.
off to the last minute.
I'm telling you,
But
I bought it a while
today is
ago.
Today is the last day that you can get the Dreadwake and Game Time bundle.
Yeah, so if you haven't bought one and you probably listen to this podcast, it's probably too late. That being said, though, if you plan on playing this game the next 6 months, which hopefully you are, as 8.1 is hoping to fix a lot of the issues, this is a deal because you get a mount out of it. It's cheaper. Why not? I mean, unless obviously you're rich like midgets here and you're paying for game time with gold. Yeah, I mean, buy it. I spent the money. Like, it was $97 Canadian. But I'll be playing the game anyway, right? So why not? I've got some gold, but
Absolutely.
yeah, why
And
not?
it's a cool mount.
It is, but of course, we did talk about it a while ago. It doesn't, go faster on water. Not that the airship did, and the airship should have. I mean, even though it's an airship and not a water ship, but yeah,
But we're not particular about anything
no,
in game.
it's fine.
So Hallows End's out. Do you have the Headless Horseman mount?
Yeah, so one of my viewers was talking about it the other day, and I'm like, and they said they got it. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I got it. Yeah, I got it in 2010. I think I got it the day after they did. So 8 years ago. Lucky me, I haven't been farming it for a while. So I did notice some of the Zeros to Heroes, Oxy and somebody else got the Headless Horseman this week, which is fantastic. What about you? Do you have the Horseman mount?
Oh yeah, I got it on my mage back in Wrath, actually.
Ah.
Way before you could share tunes. So I
Mm-hmm.
was very upset because it wasn't on my main.
Oh,
But
yeah.
fortunately, that problem has been solved.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a few in guild that are still working on the mount that have been since vanilla. One of them is running like 20 alts and creating them
crazy.
and deleting them and
Wow.
doing DKs, and he still hasn't gotten it.
That's like the Love Rocket. Like, everyone's a Love Rocket.
Right.
I think the Love Rocket is way more rare than the Headless Horseman, but why? I don't know. It's silly.
I don't know. But there is a new toy. It's a Headless Horseman's Hearthstone. You turn into. It's actually pretty cool looking. I haven't gotten it yet, but
I
the
haven't seen it.
pictures look really cool. You need 150 tricky treats. So I'll get through and do that. I was sort of off doing other things.
Okay,
today.
so for those of us that don't do that kind of content, how easy is it to get 150 tricky treats? What do I do?
All you got to do is go trick or treating, which you can do in probably an hour, or you can just do the Headless Horseman run every day.
Is that going to give me
And you
enough?
get like it'll get you close, and then you don't have to trick or treat as much.
Interesting.
I'll go out and go trick or treating in the older, Eastern kingdoms and have it in about an hour.
Okay, so realistically, I can go like listen to Sparty's podcast or watch something on Netflix in an hour and get the 150 tricky treats just going from inn to inn. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. That's what I want to hear.
Handy Notes has a the where the spots are, you
Yeah, I remember
add
that.
on, you can add it. Yeah, so you can do Handy Notes, and I think it's called Hallows End.
Awesome. And of course, there's a joke coming from our Twitch chat. For a guy without a head, he sure does a lot of talking. Yes, he
Right.
sure does.
But they got that from the Zeros to Heroes Twitter, because that's where the meme was.
Ah, yes.
Don't you watch the Zeros to Heroes Twitter?
Well, obviously, there's just so much noise. It's so hard to see sometimes.
What else is going on in Warcraft?
So Brian Halinka returned to the World of Warcraft team. He has been on a bit of a hiatus, working on some other projects in the Blizzard sort of universe. So he did update his LinkedIn, and somebody posted on the forums, and hey, Halinka, are you back? Really? And he did tweet and said, yes, I'm once again part of the Warcraft team. The team has done tremendous work during the past year, and I'm very excited to help them in any way I can. An amazing team makes World of Warcraft proud to be alongside them, which is awesome. I mean, I liked him. He brought forth some of the Legion PvP system, and I met him last BlizzCon, and I told him straight up, hey, you know what? This is the first time I've done actually any world PvP since like vanilla. So thank you for the prestige system. Thank you for what you've done. And it was a good little chat that we had. That being said, though, I mean, there was always mixed reactions to Halinka. Halinka brought this stuff, and then at the other side, well, people say during Halinka's era, it was the glory days of PvP as well, right? Things were pretty balanced and things were going pretty well. And I know now there's a lot of issues with dampening a lot of their crap as well, but here's hoping, right? I don't know if it's going to be more free Halinka or it's going to be fire Halinka. I'm not sure which Twitch chat is going to yell about, but it'll be
well,
one or the other.
I'm still stuck on the fact that you mean everybody in Warcraft doesn't agree. I'm astonished.
Yeah.
Because lately I've heard everybody feels the same way, but we'll get to that later.
So the other thing that's coming up here is the next 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, we have BlizzCon coming up. Should be exciting.
Absolutely. And normally we would be doing a lot of prep for BlizzCon, but this year you're not going. Well, you want to share with our listeners why?
For those of you that don't know, I mean, I do have a kid coming up in the next couple days. Anytime in the next week, realistically. So if I jump out and scare my wife, that's probably when it's coming. So I've been working on just finishing my real life work stuff together, getting things going. I've got plenty of vacation time saved up. So yeah, we have another kid coming next week or so, which should be exciting. We haven't told anybody if it's a boy or a girl. Let people guess whether it might be a boy, a girl, gender undecided, or attack helicopter. We'll see what happens. Should be exciting. Follow us on Twitter. You'll see baby pictures, maybe.
I can't wait to see, but yes. So it's sort of weird this year because, like I said, normally we're just doing these kinds of BlizzCon prep.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing the virtual ticket, or how are you going to be working that?
Yeah, I'll likely do the virtual ticket. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't come with great stuff, like it in previous years. But I'll likely be watching, from the hospital or from home, I guess, while one kid's sleeping, and checking what they have, and then following Wowhead and MMOChamp with some of the updates. But virtual tickets, I mean, you can't really go wrong. For those of you that can't afford to go to BlizzCon, virtual ticket is a good alternative to doing it. It's exciting.
I'm looking forward to it this year. I've been the BlizzCon virtual ticket holder for the last 3 or 4 years, so I'm excited and I'm looking forward to it. But I always enjoy BlizzCon. What do we have any spoilers or things we're going to talk about? I find it interesting that they haven't announced the closing ceremonies. Usually we have a band or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. It's less than 2 weeks, and again, I don't know. I don't have any inside knowledge. Does it change my excitement level? Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss Con Before the Storm, and the guys that put that together, Seraphis and I think it was Heather. They did an amazing job with that party, the Wowhead party. There's no Twitch party or Discord party this year. It's a rather really, really low-key BlizzCon, comparatively speaking. So, I mean, we'll talk about it more next week, but, it is what it is. It might be a reflection of BFA potentially, and the lowered hype, as there's not going to be a Diablo 4 announcement. There might not be a lot of huge things, but again, it's BlizzCon. It's there to, it's there to celebrate what we've done in World of Warcraft, what's in the Blizzard universe. You're there to meet a lot of the really awesome Blizzard personalities, where there's developers, and like I've met so many awesome people there, from the CMs to the developers to now we have Mr. Taryn Gregory in our Twitch chat as well. So it's exciting. Like I remember meeting these guys for the first time and being so in awe. And I remember meeting Ian Hazakostas last 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know, a bunch of times ago, and I was just, oh man, it's really him. He's the one that makes all the Warcraft stuff, and it's really cool. And they're humans, right? They're humans, and it's awesome. And we could talk about this thing forever. Why don't we talk about this next week? Let's save our BlizzCon talk for next week, probably.
We'll do some BlizzCon
Yeah.
prep and memories.
I could just keep talking about this
so
thing. Like I love the Blizzard players and the developers because there's such a passion behind what they do, and I mean it does sort of lead into what we're going to be talking about today, but that passion's there by the developers. It's not as if they don't care. It's there, right? And it's slow procedural learning, and I don't know, it's exciting.
Why don't you take a breath and let me talk?
Yeah, okay, you can talk for a second. I'll grab some water.
Are you gonna
Sorry.
let me talk?
I get excited about these things, and I'm going to miss BlizzCon this year.
I know you're gonna miss BlizzCon, but we could talk about it next week. Have a drink.
Okay.
Do it, but and there's all kinds of exciting things, and I personally will do a memory of BlizzCon because there's been great memories over all of the years, especially since I started following you. What is it, 6 years now?
6 when it was Son of Thunder, yeah.
5.5, 6 years. But before we get into our topic, one of the things I want to do is a couple of things. I want to make sure that I get out that we all don't feel the same as Warcraft players. And I want to start this conversation about what I am enjoying in the X-Pack so far. Because BFA there have been some challenges, and I'm not going to discount those at any level. But there is so much in the game that I love. And I thought we should start there. Sparty, why don't you go ahead and start and share what your thoughts are? What are some of the things you really enjoy about BFA?
So things I really, really like. I'm going to be, the one that everybody hates. I mean, I like grinds like Azurite systems. I like, when I played EverQuest, the alternate advancement path, right? There was some way to continue increasing your power. I like those things. I like islands for, the amount of hate they get and, a bit of a, blip. I like Warfronts. I like doing them, once. I wish it was a little bit more expanded or there were multiple Warfronts to do in a week. But I've liked the Warfront system, and, there's not things that are going to please everybody, but those things I like. I enjoy raiding for the most part. There's been issues and buggy bosses, but the content's been pretty good. The dungeons were pretty awesome, especially during them the first couple times. I've liked it in general. I still like doing world quests. I don't know. I like doing my thing. I like a little bit of everything. I mean, I'll do a pet battle here and there, but from pet battling to mythic raiding, there's a lot of things I like. So I don't know, a lot. What about you?
Well, I'm going to say I enjoy the new pets. This is an expansion that is more like Wrath, so I'm a Wrath baby, and when I first started playing,
Wrath. Okay.
I started playing in Wrath. And it was a place where I could just go and I could stop and fish for a minute, I could farm for a minute, then I could do some archaeology, and then I could do a pet battle, and the views are gorgeous. And I enjoy the storyline. I absolutely love Waycrest Manor. It is my favorite instance in dungeon. I think the bosses are fun. I enjoy Mother, and I look forward to all of those challenges. So within the past few weeks, we've been hearing so much about, things that people didn't like. I wanted to take a moment and, highlight the things that we do like, because I get on every day. I enjoy islands. I love the pets. You've got
1,000 pets now. We have 1,004 now. Unique pets.
I got more like 1,010, but I've got like 20 or 30 or 40 more to go.
Oh, wow.
And I've got to level them, and I got to do all of the things that I enjoy with that. So I'm really excited. And so taking all of the things that, especially if you're on Twitter, there's people who are probably listening to us that have never opened Twitter in their life. And I'll tell you, the last couple of weeks, they're probably grateful for that. But if you're on Twitter and you see everything that's going on, you're sort of like, eh. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Well,
So let's go on to one more last thing for the what's new in the community. And before we start this topic, Warcraft devs announced the Mythic Plus Azerite armor improvements.
okay. So yeah, so the improvements are that, I mean, it's something that's been asked for a while, and it's been in the works for a while, clearly. Um, Essentially, you're going to be able to target your Azurite pieces with a currency of some sort, and the argument's been, it's easier to see that path, that finish line, rather than just going through the randomness of Azurite armor. I'm not. I don't know. I've mixed reactions of this thing. Essentially, your highest mythic cash will give you X amount of currency. Get enough currency to get a random Azurite piece for that slot, or with more than like a lot of premium currency, you'll be able to get exactly the type of Azurite piece you want, which is great. I'm just a little worried about the secondary effects of, okay, cool. So the other thing you can do is scrap the Azurite armor or whatever and get some of the currency back. Okay, which means I'm now having to do a Mythic Zero World Tour and do some other Mythic Pluses in order to hopefully get some Azurite. Potentially, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what the drop rate is. Hopefully, the scrap currency is so low that it dissuades people from doing that, right? Because the first thing I thought was, okay, cool, I've got like 10 Azurite pieces right now. Should I save them? Good. Lore corrected. No, it'll be new stuff. You can't, save up your Azurite right now. There's no reason for it. Awesome. So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, I think, for players that had real issues with the Azurite system, especially Mythic Plus players or players that did not raid. So, good.
Well, you know what that means, though, Sparty? That means all of the uproar is the reason that happened. I just want you to know, because everybody was screaming. That's why these things happened.
I see. So Blizzard doesn't play their game.
Are you right?
They must not see the issues of their own game. We require the Towlies out there to complain.
But we wanted to touch on it, and I'm gonna mostly because I almost want to start a trend that says they aren't speaking for me, and I have to tell you, I turned off Twitter for the last couple of weeks. I didn't even want to get on it. And I know from where I'm seeing from a lot of the people who follow me and the people that are discussing that a lot of people are starting to feel that way.
Yep.
So let's get into our conversation.
Yeah, and some of the topics that have been brought up with various YouTubes or Reddits or forum posts and more discussions, class feedback stuff, a lot of the Twitter, some of them are really well thought out discussion topics and concerns, and others are a very dramatic, hyperbolic, which means over the top, super exaggerated. This is the worst decision of all mankind. It is grossly exaggerated, and it always weakens your point when you use hyperboles. So there's a lot of over-the-top responses to the same valid concerns, and it's not the concerns that are the issue, right? Like, Blizzard, the devs, are aware that these concerns are an issue. It's really how that feedback is provided that is the real concern. And in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of noise about it, and I sort of put that in quotations where there's a ton of noise. But is it giving solutions, or is it making it so people within Blizzard, as well as within the community, are turning their head and just sort of walking away? Because it's a lot of noise and yelling and complaining and drivel. And people, myself, I guess perhaps you, because you've turned off Twitter, maybe some people here in channel or our listeners, they're getting more frustrated with the vocal minority, or potentially the majority, that have screamed and yelled until their message was heard and then no longer heard. But I mean, is anyone else tired of all this screaming and complaining? For those that would have said, hey, it would be solved. Blizzard would just fix their shit, right? Like right now, flip a switch, remove Azurite right now. Okay, cool. Awesome. Great suggestion. What is that going to do to the game, right? Like it's such a huge system right now. How do you just flip a switch and turn Azurite off? Right? There's a lot more to do. And obviously these things have been in the works for such a long time. Does it really change the community response? The game is an MMO, which means not only does the game need to keep our interest, but so does the community as well. And does the outrage of the past couple weeks make you want to log in? not because, or maybe not want to log in, not because you're unhappy with the game, but simply because you don't want to hear the stupid small indie meme one more time. Like that, whatever. Like people say it, that one annoys me because obviously it's a massive company and it's a really tiresome meme that just goes nowhere, right? So how much potential detriment is people's complaining causing to those around you? Right. So for instance, and I'll use the example of myself. I've got issues with Azure system or rating or whatever. Um, but I try not to vent to my guild members, to my friends, to everybody else, partly because it's a leadership position that I'm in as a guild master, as a raid leader, and the more people that have that voice really complain and just have that negative outlook, the more just it rubs off, and it's almost a very toxic approach. And you have to be very careful with what you say. And I'll confide in people, or I'll give feedback to devs, and I've got a good line to some devs as well, and that's the way I'll go. But I think you have to really be careful of, if you have a soapbox, how you use it. So with that, I mean, just because people were loud, I don't think it means they've solved the problem, right? We aren't here. I mean, we aren't here to highlight any of the commentary in the past few weeks, other than to think there are better ways of doing it, right?
Well, absolutely. And what we want to know is, does it really help bring change? Did it really do anything?
Okay. So Towley and Bajira and Sko and Method should make a video tomorrow suggesting this major change, and it's going to happen because they've got a lot of followers, right? Like, does it make sense that Blizzard is going to cave to the demands of a major content creator or major content creators on a Switch? No, I mean, it makes no sense, right? Does it really help bring upon change? I don't know. I don't really know that it does. Sorry, go ahead. You were talking.
No, I don't know that it does either. Because what it does, I don't think it makes it happen any faster. And the things that have come out, the changes or the things that they're aware of, the responses are too quick to have not already been well into the fixed process long before everybody came and said, hey, we don't like this, with their pitchforks and their torches, and they're going to burn down Blizzard. And it's just not an effective communication. Do we really think it gets it done any quicker?
So I'm going to stop you right there. I've been playing this game for close to 15 years now, and I'm pretty sure I understand how a game developer works just through playing the game for a while. Like, I've been playing since vanilla. What do you mean that changes can't happen in a day? Clearly, my experience of playing this game makes me a developer, right? Or being very vocal. What I mean, and that, joking aside, right? When we look at fixes and improvements, do you guys remember the Soldier cinematic that was linked, and maybe Terran is still here? The Soldier cinematic that was released, and many people had this massive issue of Sylvanas so evil. Where's the morally gray? And again, people took that out of context entirely, right? They misconstrued what was said about the whole morally gray thing. So when the Soldier cinematic was released, everyone said, "Oh yeah, okay, so now they're making Horde really good." So they clearly. God, Taron Gregory must be so good because he turned around the cinematic in like a day.
While he was on vacation.
God.
While he was on vacation.
While he was on vacation in England, right?
Right.
Like, incredible. How does this guy have this kind of magic to do it? Absolutely insane. So clearly these things are more well planned out than, responding to the whims and complaints of the community, right? Community, vocal community, whatever it is. And it's again amazing. He's laughing there. So it's incredible that, especially the kind of caliber of what it was, right?
But it was gorgeous.
It was incredible, cinematic. Right? And shoulders off for the Horde.
Threw that out right, within 24 hours, I think.
Yeah, see, like, again, I'm not a fan of Zappy Boy, and I hate the name. Sourfell, like, that was a great cinematic by far. It was super compelling, and shoulders off for the Horde. But people said it was released because, well, Blizzard realized people were upset. Well, clearly, come on, people. And it's when people are upset about these things, the Azure Gear system, PvP, whatever. Those things have a process. There is a process for getting those things done. And I say that not as a person that has been playing the game for 15 years and clearly know what developers are thinking. But I've spoken to the developers and I've been at Blizzard and I sort of know how they function and I know how those teams function. And obviously, I don't have inside knowledge, but I understand the process through talking to the class devs, in person and the QA testers and everybody else, what the whole sort of process is and what the timelines are like. Don't take my word for it, but I mean, believe what you want. I mean,
Well, and people are going to,
for
and
sure.
and in this environment, they're going to.
Yeah.
But even if you have any sort of common sense or any sort of experience with even doing software upgrades or anything like that, you don't just go, oh, everybody's upset, let's put this fix in there, and not have to think about what is going to impact. And
Mm-hmm.
so it might, it could, I mean, they might have gotten an idea from some of the feedback. I don't want to discount the feedback, nor do I want to discount people having the right to their opinion. But it is this mob mentality that is actually very toxic, and it isn't solving anything. And when they come back and say, well, it's because we said something that it's been fixed, well, that's arrogance at its finest. I'm sorry, you're not that big of a deal. I don't care who you are. And within what people are doing.
What do you mean I'm not a big deal? I've been playing since Warcraft, since vanilla. I've got an
Well,
Ashbringer. I used to have
got an
3,000
Ashbringer.
viewers per night per a raid. What do you mean? Yeah, well, keep going. Sorry.
Yes, and within the internal structure of any company, you're just not going to have that kind of fast turnaround. And I think the Warcraft community is spoiled because we actually have a very interactive community management team
Mm-hmm.
and developers. You don't get that with EA games. You don't get that with most of the other gaming platforms out there. And it's really a shame and disheartening to see us treat those people the way we do.
Yeah, and I mean, well, what do we hear? Well, we just hear that other video game companies, put 100 hours of overtime into their staff, right? I mean, overtime is no different than, Blizzard, again, in an environment like Blizzard, they're going to try to reduce the amount of overtime, but shit needs to get done. It needs to get done, period, right? But you're right, though. I mean, it's a huge interactive community. Where else can we be so interactive with, with community managers, with developers, with major cinematic people? What else are they going to go to somebody's Twitch channel, right, and say hello and share something awesome, or one you can go see them stream themselves. That's such a cool era to be living in. In the last 20 years, this is probably the first time that's ever been possible, right? To have such insights sometimes and see who these people are behind the game. And you're right. So some of the the communication, the how we communicate, right? Is that discouraging some of the players potentially? Or so the developers? Well, yeah, potentially. If you keep bitching at the same people over and over, yeah, it's gonna get you muted and blocked. But are you now eating away at the mental fortitude that some of these developers have, right? In order to get your point across, right? It's how much damage is that going to do to the community, right? We have such an awesome community and such great communication oftentimes that. Well, the kind of vitriol that gets spit out sometimes, it's really discouraging. Well, why should I talk to these guys anymore? Right? Why should Halinka or Hazakostas or whoever, or Celestlon when he was part of the team, communicate when all they're getting is crap or a picture of some guy's asshole, right? As the warrior thing that happened. It's ridiculous, right? So why should they do that when they're obviously trying their best? And of course, there's always more room for more communication, but, it's how we get the communication across, and Blizzard often gets, sometimes quiet during these big mob fests. And why? Well, is it because they have no answer? Or is it because you're dealing with a mob that has zero rationale and dialogue? It's just, screw you, Blizzard, you suck. You're a small indie company. Your lore sucks. This sucks. PvP sucks. Still going to keep paying your money and complaining. But game sucks, right? And it's
and it's ending, and vanilla was better, and we saw the meme, and I should have gotten the link for it so we could share. But good morning, Reddit. Wow, what are we offended by today?
Oh my god, it's a hilarious picture. Yeah, it's just, well, what are we going to be upset about today, right? Like, why should that be a meme? Why should that be a thing? And it's, you try to have some of these rational discussions, and I had a fairly good conversation with Asmongold on Twitter, but with a lot of the mob mentality devolved into just, that's not what I said at all. Like, I said a tweet where I said something like, just because a system was around doesn't mean it's good for the game. Warcraft has seen a number of different loot systems. We were talking about personal loot and master loot. There's been Need Be for Greed and Round Robin and all these different loot systems around, right? So an argument of, and the argument that he had made was, well, Master Loot's been around for 10 years. I'm like, okay, but just because something's been around for 10 years doesn't mean it's a good system. The way that it used to be, or the way that it's always been, is not a good argument for that's the way it should be. Well, the point countered was, well, change for the sake of saying change isn't a good argument either. Yeah, but that's not what I said. That's not what I said. It's not change for the sake of change. It's change for the... Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm really impressed, because sometimes when you get these conversations going, they actually turn out to be conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But even when you or I speak out, we get our own fair share of trolls. I've seen a few on yours, one, you're just a piece of blah, blah, blah. And then I got somebody who sent me a picture of a loser, just so they, could tell me. Yes, because I said, and I want you to know, this is what I said. I said, I've never felt anything but a valued customer with Warcraft, and I felt like they answered my questions. And I may not always be happy with everything in the game, but I am always happy with Blizzard Entertainment. I have always felt like I'm a valued customer, that it's a game I want to play, and that's why I continue to play. So I put this in a response to Blizzard CS, because I really feel for these guys some days.
CS guys, I know.
And somebody sent me a picture of me being a loser, and all I could think was,
what?
Okay.
Midgets of all people? Somebody's trying to troll you? Come on. You're like one of the nicest people ever.
Except before coffee, or if I'm annoyed.
Well, yeah. Outside of those times. So anyway, we're gonna shut that shit down Negan style very quickly right now. Yeah. So I mean, all right. So does it create dialogue? Not really. It's, hey, Midgets isn't gonna blow smoke up your butt, and she's not a Blizzard fangirl. She obviously has issues with some of the things in World of Warcraft. At the same time, like, she's voicing her opinion and says, hey, I've always felt like a great customer or a great customer through Blizzard, and they've always felt appreciated. And somebody sends you a picture and says you're a loser. Thanks for creating great dialogue. That is awesome. And I get that people are so passionate about this game, which is awesome, but passion doesn't give you the right to be a jerk on the internet, right? And there's a great twink here. Not a twink. A
tweet from Jinx.
Tweet from Jinx. Yes, thank you. That says, this is October 16th. It shouldn't have to be said, but don't be a dick to community managers, devs, writers, artists, and so on if you want your voice heard. Acting like you have rabies isn't a great look. Whoa. So should we really need those kind of tweets? Like, Jinx is a clothing company, right? Like, that's what why? I don't understand. Do you really need a tweet that says, hey, please be a decent human being to other people? Are you effing kidding me? Like, why do we need that kind of reminder? Well, is this what we've devolved to? I hope not.
I hope not. But what about the impact on the community at large? I know I've seen a lot of tweets.
Yeah, it sucks because a lot of content creators are feeling the same thing I am. And there was another good one from Belle of Podcast, and they've got a great podcast as well. So Belle says, seriously sick to effing death of so much shit posting and word vomiting regarding Warcraft 24/7. It's literally every other post all the time. And yeah, okay, that's a little hyperbolic. Fine. Then there is the lackeys who clap excitedly and cheer on this endless dribble of noxious circle jerk garbage. Yep, how dare I? And so part of it is vocal minority, and part of it I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, but people are afraid to say anything because of this vocal group of people that they're going to get trampled on, right? Poor Midget's here who's just voicing her opinion about liking Blizzard customer service. She's getting shat on by some troll, right? People don't want to participate in these mob mentality discussions because why? Because the same thing's going to happen, right? It's not rational discussion. It's just, I'm going to hear what I want to hear and, plug my ears and just keep yelling, right? Like that's all it is. And well, we need to be better than that. Are we having discussions? No, we're not. There was another really good tweet. This one was from Joshua Neal, where he simply said forums. And this was tweeted to Blizzard CS. He says forums, yuck. And there's a little picture of the original Star Wars Obi-Wan talking to Luke. It says, "You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, forums." Right? It's wherever. It's too bad that a lot of the forums have devolved to that. And yeah, people get their own opinions, and that's fine. But at the same time, like, how do we change this around? And I'm trying to, I've always, okay, lead through positivity and lead by example and do all that. But how do we change this mob mentality around? I don't know. It's something I need to ponder on some more.
Well, I always think talking about it helps. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons we did this podcast, because we talked about it when it first came out, if we wanted to come out and have this conversation. Because ultimately, we'll get 14 million tweets from the Gamers Unite or whatever it is out there telling us that we don't have a right to opinion. Well, I'm going to tell them right back I do. And they don't speak for me. And I don't like the way they treat Blizzard as a company, their staff, any of their representatives, and the stuff that I see on Twitter is horrific, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't care what it is that you think is wrong with the game. There are human beings on the other end of that deserve much better treatment than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's another really good one there where I don't know. It's more tweets to Blizzard CS, and it's just, you look at some of the Blizzard CS tweets, and it's the same kind of fans for fanatics, clapping each other on the back and saying, okay, well, this content creator did this great thing for it, and it's too bad, right? It's if you say something, you're subject to the same crap that everybody else was, to Midgets was. Again, it's if somebody has a different opinion, well, I'm going to attack you and call you a loser. Like, why can't we have discussions on the internet anymore? Like, why can't we have good, rational debate? I don't know, and it's too bad because I know it's taxing mentally on the developers, CM guys, and yeah, they have thick skin like crazy, and they're awesome for what they do, and I'm sure Blizzard has an awesome mental health support system. That means that doesn't make it okay, right? It doesn't make any of that stuff okay. And, by talking about it, hopefully we've affected one or two people or a couple of people that can speak up and say, hey, stop being a dick, right? And sometimes people need to be told, right? Like, sometimes you don't realize you're standing in the fire until somebody tells you you're standing in fire. And sometimes you don't realize you're being a dick or some crazy fanatic until somebody tells you as well. So don't do that. Treat people like human beings and be excellent to each other, right? And I guess just start closing off with Midgets here. We don't want to discount any of the awesome feedback that's been out there, right? And there's been so much great feedback and discussions, and even as viewers and listeners, you guys have issues. That's totally fine, right? Like, absolutely, please get those issues out there. If you don't tell Blizzard what issues and what your opinions are on these things, how are they going to know? I mean, yeah, they play their game too. At the same time, like, we clearly have some very passionate players. So the time invested from the fan base, the posts that cover everything from class balance to gearing, all that stuff is fantastic, right? We've had that huge mega thread this last week on Reddit, which was awesome. And the feedback in alpha and beta and the stuff that's currently on PTR, right? 8.1 stuff coming up. Those things are critical to making our game even better, right? They're absolutely. If you can find that sort of between all the other sort of shit posts that are out there. And there are things that would make great improvements, and part of me says, you know what? Well, what if the forums were like the old school elitist jerks? Would we still have this massive cesspool? Probably not. What if Blizzard went the way of real IDs on forums? Would we still be going the same way? Probably not. I mean, that's a whole different can of worms, but there's so much noise out there drowning at the great feedback out there from the content creators, developers, on YouTube and Reddit and the forums, but it's so buried between the hyperboles and the vitriol that a lot of meaningful discussion is lost. It's too bad. And as the expansion progresses, there's always been improvements and tweaks to make the expansion much better, right? I guarantee 8.1 is going to be a much better place. And realistically, my opinion is 8.1 is probably where the game should have started off at. Right? Like, absolutely. There was a huge miss, and 8.1 is going to solve a lot of the potential issues that were talked about in alpha and beta and so forth, right? So that's where we should have started off, right? And I'll call it where it is, but that's what it's like. And so the expansion, it's been a lot better, and we have to continue sharing our feedback with the developers, with the direction that we would like as customers. We all expect Blizzard to stamp out, the stamp of not releasing expansion until it's ready, because we missed that, and I've been critical of that as well. Of like, why isn't it not released until it's ready, right? Like, what happened to the gold stamp of approval? And are we disappointed as players? Yeah, it didn't happen, right? Yeah, you're absolutely well deserved to be disappointed for sure. And are you happy, or we as a player base, am I happy of everything that's come out of BFA so far? No, not really, right? I mean, I think other expansions that definitely, had their pros, and people are missing Worlds of Draenor now, and people hated Worlds of Draenor, but now they want it back. And this isn't about the issues in many cases. It's, we share some of the same concerns. And so the feedback, or the if I was listening to my podcast right now, I would say to us, are you guys just complaining about complaining? No, we're not complaining about complaining. You should complain. You should absolutely complain and get that feedback out there. But it's how you complain. It's how you get that message across that is so important. And I mean, is the dialogue the last couple of weeks something that we would expect of Blizzard and their employees to want to experience each day? Probably not. Right? Is it something you'd want to experience each day as a person? If you were, put yourself in their shoes. I know empathy is hard for people to practice sometimes, but put yourself in their shoes of the community managers and read one of these threads. Like, would you want the stuff directed to you? Read every single line, right? Is that truly the way to give feedback? I don't know. Just anything else to add here?
No, I don't think so, because I think going forward, the best thing we can do is lead by example, because I like to be problem solvers versus just saying what's wrong. What's the solution? Well, the solution is for those of us who aren't interested in the mob mentality or the pitchfork and storming the gates of Blizzard to stand up and say, this isn't okay. We may not, I'm still annoyed about the bank. The guild bank.
Oh my god, and the guild roster. I could complain about stuff too, and I have.
But there are so many ways to do it better. And for me, Blizzard has never let me down. They might have disappointed me, but they always come back and fix it. And I too think that the expansion was probably released a little bit early. But with that being said, they were meeting a request from their fan base to have constant content.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, we got what we wanted. So we need to take some responsibility there too. But I think going forward, instead of being silent, because it's hard to stand up to bullies. But
Absolutely.
but basically, if that's all it is on the internet, is a bunch of internet bullies. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with it with our children. I'm not okay with it within my life. And I don't think it's fair to anybody, not just Blizzard employees, anybody that is working in that kind of environment to be subject to any of the stuff that we're seeing. We're better than that. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it than that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we need to lead by example. And if it's, my daughter and she's being bullied, you tell the bully to stop, you tell them again, and then you punch them in the throat. And again, offer the feedback, suggestions, the solutions. A lot of that input can bring upon so many great changes. But we as a community, we should support our game and our developers rather than mob of pitchforks. And, if you have a soapbox, well, use it effectively, right? It's, okay, Sparty has an idea here. All right, 10,000 Twitter followers. I need you to go like this post and tell everybody you agree. It's not the way that things should be done. And it really, is this what we want out of a community long term? Well, we need to do better, right? We need to lead by example. We need to stand up to the vocal people and stand up for each other ultimately, right? Like that's what matters. Stand up for each other as players, as people, and think about the people behind that screen. So with that, guys, we're going to wind down. Thank you guys for watching, listening, wherever you're listening. Have a good night. Be excellent to each other. And as always, live your life heroically. Have a fantastic evening. Good night.